let's turn our attention now to monetary policy and how the Federal Reserve conducts this policy. First, we will take a look at the monetarists, which is a group of economists who believe that monetary instability is the major cause of fluctuations in real GDP, and that rapid growth of the money supply is the major cause of inflation. The supply of money may have a short-run impact on output and employment, but in the long run, the only outcome is a change in the average level of prices. Therefore, monetary policy can be used temporarily to increase real economic variables, but in the long run, it only has nominal effects. Now, we need to become more familiar with a basic monetary model. We can analyze a monetary system by looking at the supply and demand for money. Higher interest rates increase the opportunity cost of holding money. The quantity of money demanded will therefore be inversely related to the interest rate. Thus, the demand for money is represented by a downward sloping function. In the graph below, we can see the function for money demand and money supply. Money supply's function is completely vertical, as it is influenced by the Federal Reserve System and does not depend on the price of money or the interest rate. The equilibrium between money supply and money demand will determine the interest rate and the quantity of money in the system. Now we need to take a look at the transmission mechanism of monetary policy and GDP, or national output. If the Federal Reserve increases the supply of money, which represents a rightward shift of the money supply function, four main things will happen. First, the price of money, or the money interest rate, will fall. Then this will make investment in consumption spending through borrowing cheaper. Next, financial capital will move overseas and stimulate exports through a depreciating US dollar. This is because investors are looking for a higher rate of return. If interest rates fall within the US, then more financial capital will move to seek investment opportunities in international markets. And lastly, the lower interest rate will tend to increase asset prices, and this increases consumption spending as Americans have more net worth. So far, we have focused on monetary policy and its effects in the short run. Now we need to take a look at how this policy impacts the economic system in the long run. In the short run, increasing the supply of money can lead to an expansion of economic output and an increase in employment. But in the long run, monetary policy only changes the average level of prices. This is known as a quantity theory of money, which is a theory that hypothesizes that a change in the money supply will cause a proportional change in the price level because the velocity of money and real output are unaffected by the quantity of money. And velocity is the average number of times that a dollar changes hands to purchase final goods and services. The equation of exchange is used under this theory, and we have MV equals PY. M represents the money supply, V represents the velocity of money, P is the average price level, and Y is GDP, or national income. This can also be represented in the following relationship. The rate of inflation plus the growth rate in real output, or GDP, should equal the growth rate of money supply plus the growth rate of velocity. Thus, the long-run effect of increasing the money supply faster than the GDP growth rate will be an increase in the price level. Holding GDP constant, we should see that the rate of inflation in the long run is equal to the growth rate of the supply of money. But we should realize that monetary policy is not instantaneous, so we're going to talk about the time lags, monetary shifts, and economic stability. So time lags between monetary policy changes and output and prices are long and variable. The Fed can quickly change monetary policy, but it takes time for this effect to be observed in the economy. Economists estimate that it will generally take 6 to 15 months for a shift in monetary policy to exert a major impact on aggregate demand and real output. We also estimate that it will take approximately 18 to 36 months before there is a significant impact on the price level and the inflation rate. Finally, we need to take a look at the Taylor rule. The Taylor rule is an instrument which can be used to measure the consistency of monetary policy with the two objectives of price stability and full employment rate of output. The equation provides the federal fund rate that is consistent with the Fed's objective of price stability and maximum employment. So we can see the relationship here where F is our target federal funds rate, R is the equilibrium real interest rate, which is generally assumed to be about 2.5% in the long run. P is the inflation rate, and P star is a desired inflation rate. Y is output, and Y star is a potential output. We can see from this relationship that when output is above trend and inflation is too high, then the federal funds rate will need to increase to reduce this inflation. However, if we are in a recession and national output is below trend with falling prices, then the Federal Reserve may need to decrease the target federal funds rate in order to stimulate the economy. This instrument acts as a benchmark for policymakers to follow when implementing monetary policy, but it also allows us to evaluate their performance as policymakers. Next, we should look at the 2008 Great Recession in terms of monetary policy. And one conclusion which we can reach is that inappropriate monetary policy clearly played a role in the 2008 recession. According to the Taylor rule, the federal funds rate was 2 full percentage points below the target rate, which is recommended for maximum employment and stable prices. As this excessive credit expansion led to inflation, the Federal Reserve began to restrict the supply of money and began pushing interest rates up. This caused home prices to either level off or even to fall in 2006. As a result, mortgage defaults and foreclosures began to increase sharply, and as you remember, a lot of subprime borrowers had adjustable rate mortgages. Interest rates on these mortgages increased and pushed many homeowners into default or foreclosure. But lastly, monetary policy was not the only cause of the 2008 crisis. We have to remember that regulatory policies which forced banks to extend mortgages to borrowers with poor credit also played a pivotal role in the crisis.